Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Movie Dissect. Have you ever had this feeling when a movie has confused you? When it ended but you still needed some extra explanation about why and how and when? Well, worry no more, because on this channel we break down movies, we analyze them, and we provide you with top-notch explanation. The first movie we have chosen for you guys is Mission Impossible Part 1. So why is the film directed by Brian De Palma, written by Robert Tone, David Koop and Steven Zaylan such an amazing movie? Because nothing has predicted a subtext masterpiece in a rather difficult process of making that movie. So what is it really? Here is Movie Dissect's take on it. Fasten your seatbelts. Let's do it. There are three themes throughout the movie: identity and the Greek myth of Oedipus, the biblical story of Job, and voyeurism.
Card number 1, identity.
The film is a search for a new identity. Ethan Hunt, the man with many identities, actually loses his identity after falling into disgrace. He is no longer an IMF agent after being told that he is being suspected to being a mole.
The mole's deep inside. And like you said, you survived.
But not only does he lose his status in the eyes of his superior Kittredge, but he also loses his identity as his father's son. It is very clear that Jim Phelps has taken over the father's role from Ethan's father, who died from a long-term illness, and Jim's wife Claire has obviously become his surrogate mother. When Jim dies the first time, Ethan goes to bed with Claire. In the film, there is nothing left of that scene, but you can find traces of it in the MI trailer or if you read the shooting script. In this cutscene, Ethan wants Claire, but she initially refuses, then changes her mind, and then finally agrees to have sex. Remember Oedipus? In the Greek myth, there is a prophecy that Oedipus will kill his father and marry his mother. He tries to escape his destiny, but eventually he ends up killing his father and marrying his mother. When Oedipus is finally exposed to the truth, he's overcome with shame. Once Oedipus realizes that he was not able to escape his prophecy, he's disgusted by himself and he stuffs his own eyes like... Well, this Oedipal relationship is really important in MI for the search of the identity. Because the normal world that gives Ethan his identity is disintegrated. When his superior Kittredge designates him as the mole, the loss of the identity is complete. De Palma, the director, has situated that moment in a restaurant with a gigantic aquarium. So when Ethan escapes his superior Kittredge, it's like a child being born for the second time, because Ethan literally escaped through the amniotic fluid. He can now start looking for his new identity. He surrounds himself with new surrogate brothers because all others are killed, and goes looking for that identity in the Womp where all other spies were created, including him. The Black Vault, the mecca of the CIA agents. De Palma, the director, goes really far in his Freudian narrative and literally leaves Ethan hanging from an umbilical cord, as you can see here. The interesting thing is that Ethan, when dangling on that cord in the Black Vault, is compared with a spider coming back to his web, because the floor of the Black Vault is clearly a web. Then later, when Ethan is listening to Jim's story in the cafe, the decor looks like one huge web. Afterwards, Claire, his surrogate mother, turns out to be not just a widow but a black widow. And in the final scenes, when Jim and Ethan are crawling on the roof of the train, they look like little spiders. Well, back to our Freudian theme. With his new identity, it makes sense that Ethan can now start looking for new surrogate parents. Well, these are Max, a mother figure who is sexually attracted to Ethan, and Job, the father figure who feels nothing but revenge for the man who slept with his wife. The confrontation between Max and Job eventually happens in and on a train, which is, by the way, not by accident, since trains are striking fellow symbols, as Hitchcock showed us. By the way, for those who don't know who Hitchcock is, he's the master of suspense movies, has 53 suspense movies on his name. And he has used the train going into a tunnel as a sexual metaphor in North by Northwest in the final scene. So in the climax, the big fight between Ethan and his surrogate father happens on that penetrating phallus, while his surrogate brother is trying to castrate him. And in the coda, Ethan finds his new identity with his new surrogate brother, the hacker, and he takes over the role of his surrogate father.
Card number 2, biblical story of Job.
When we think of identity, we also think about the genetic code. And could it be a coincidence that the spiral staircase in the block of flats in Prague resembles the double helix of DNA? and that this image is repeated in the apartment block of Max? And is it a coincidence that 3-letter words recur all the time? There's job, there is Max, there is nog. Are they a reference to a genetical basic code or triplet that consists out of 3 amino acids? Maybe. But the choice of Job and Job 3:14 is not accidental. Job was a figure who believed in God, but Satan convinced God to put him to the test and take everything away from him. The story ends with God restoring the honor to Job, and that is exactly what happens to Ethan Hunt. Job 3:14 refers to the sentence, "with the kings and counselors of the earth, who build wild places for themselves." It comes from Job's speech where he curses the day he was born, and just like Job, Ethan will be reborn. The moment when Ethan hears about Job from Kittredge for the first time takes place just before his rebirth, in that place with the exploding aquarium.
Coward number 3, Voyeurism.
Voyeurism is everywhere in this movie. In the first scene, Ethan's partner Jack watches Ethan's operation through the monitor. Then, Ethan has the special glasses that allow other people to see what Ethan sees, which later helps him to unmask Jim. Afterwards, we get to know that there was a second IMF team watching Ethan's team, and when Jim, who has risen from the dead and tells Ethan what happened to him, we see all the action from Ethan's eyes. So, if Ethan is an Oedipus, he's certainly not a tragic one. He also has a god, in this case the CIA summit, who treats him unfairly. He also kills his father and sleeps with his mother. And he's initially as blind as Oedipus. But Ethan goes on a search for his new identity. And by following the trail of a Job, he gradually changes from Oedipus to Job. At the end, it is not his fault that he has fallen into disgrace. And also at the end, he is restored to honor by his god. So at the end, Ethan becomes some sort of an anti-Oedipus. Because instead of stabbing his eyes and blinding himself, he puts on the special glasses that allow him and his spectators to see twice as much. With those special glasses, he looks at Jim, so Kittredge, or the CIA top, or God if you want to, can see everything with him. Now, you would think that Ethan knows what it means to watch. But there are a lot of things in the movie when Ethan hasn't seen something or thinks he hasn't seen it. So at first, he doesn't know that there's a second IMF team watching his team, then he believes his mentor Jim is dead, and 3, he trusts Claire because he's attracted to her. Ethan's world, a huge spiderweb, is an illusion in which nothing is what it seems, and where a play within a play is constantly being performed. By the end, you would think Ethan really opened his eyes. But no, actually he just took over his father's place, and the story can start all over again. Because of our identification with Ethan, we as an audience experience everything with him. So we may be even as naive as him, our film hero. Because director Brian De Palma constantly destroys what we see as a reality. From the very first scene, he gives obvious hints that he will cheat and lie unless the audience looks closely enough. But the audience, it can't and it won't look thoroughly because we always believe what we see. And what did we see in Mission Impossible? Well, we've seen a series of scenes that are repeated constantly. We've seen people just changing their faces and revealing another face. We've seen a sequence of absurd scenes and a far-fetched plot. So, De Palma offers his spectators a lot of nonsense. But among this nonsense, he still tries to make clear that we are all as blind as Oedipus, but that this sin will be forgiven us at the end, just like Job was forgiven by his God. And that all so we can fall into the trap of cinema again. That was Movie Dissect. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next one. Hey guys, if you like the video, please consider subscribing and liking the video. And also if you have any suggestions, if you have a film that you really are hesitant about the ending of it, just drop your suggestions in the comment section down below. And thank you for watching again. Bye.